looking at it. From Joel, I love Mike Leach's take, current status of college, NIL, and transfer. He says either you are pro or not. We've gone over this about the options you would have. If you're a pro, then you should be treated like a pro. No more hat pick commit day. Instead, it's like the NFL. You get drafted. You don't have a choice. You can be traded. You can be cut. Right now, it's all benefiting without any of the accountability. That will never work. That will never happen, but at least it's another idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think in regards to, the hat dance versus getting drafted or whatever, I mean, the draft, if you really sit back and look at it, it's pretty uppity and it's pretty much just a show. Like it's not – they could easily do the draft and not have 15 minutes to walk on the stage and hug Goodell and take your pictures and go to the back and go to the car wash and, hours later finally leave the building. The NFL's got its own things that are kind of like that.
They used to do it in a hotel ballroom, and they'd be like, all right, you're up now. All right, this guy.
I do think that, in terms of it's going to be interesting to see the more that these guys make money, the more of how they're treated. And I've seen some people, fight back on the whole, well, there's kids. It's like, well, yeah, we're talking about the kid, though, that just signed like reportedly a $3 million NIL deal to play college football. It's like, but they're children. It's like, but like, can you have it both ways? Some people want to have it both ways, and I just don't think that everybody's going to be on board with seeing it both ways. I think that if you are, you're a 19, 20-year-old who's playing, for all intents and purposes, minor league football, and you're signed to $1 million NIL deal, I don't know why anybody should feel like they have to treat you like you're 13 and in middle school still. You know what I mean? Now, and I don't think you need to treat them like they're fully aware of everything life entails and that they're, sitting there with the wisdom of 55-year-olds or something. But, the middle ground will be interesting because it's not like, oh, don't boo them. They're here on scholarship, just going to school and playing football. Well, now Bijan's driving a Lambo around Austin. So it's like, it's a little different now.
When you have those contracts, though, you have fiduciary responsibilities. And part of that means that you kind of have to be good at what you're doing. Say they were child entertainers, which there's tragic stories about many, many of those. But say that Bijan Robinson, Quinn Ewers, and Xavier Worthy were in a boy band, right? And they hit it big, and all of a sudden they're making $10 million each. All right, boom, like that. Does the record company, after they've signed their contract now, outside of the ethics of doing it right and making sure that they get the max out of their investment, do they owe them to they're just kids? Like, no, we got to put out a record and we got to go on a tour and we got to make this money back that we've invested in these people. That's what happens when you make that kind of money, right?
Yeah, I just think the age grouping is a little weird.
Yeah.
If you're talking you are in some cases talking teenagers, 18, 19-year-olds. So I don't know. Just for me, I don't look at it as though, NIL's in play. Now I'm going to yell at these guys where I wasn't yelling at them before. I'm not going to be any different any way, shape, or form as far as expectations or the way I view any of these players. So I guess it's kind of up to the fans out there that will decide on that. It's not like college players haven't been booed before. We've definitely seen it in some places. But
you just took my thunder, and I'm stole my thunder. Because we saw what happened with Charlie Brewer last year at Baylor. But that is very rare. Very, very rare. I think most college stands, fans, attendants, whatever, may boo the program, but I really don't know how often have they actually booed individual players. I'm not saying that hasn't happened. Does that now open the gate because of what guy has some number attached to his jersey as far as dollar sign?
Yeah, and I think Charlie, some of that was obviously on him, but I think a lot of that, too, is just the way all it was kind of handled and the frustration of, it's so blatantly obvious that this is not working. The frustration levels were through the roof, and rightfully so, the way just all that kind of unfolded. And, they only had so many options, but, geez Louise, there were just times where you're like, are you kidding me? You might as well roll Matt Rule out there under center.
Well, and the option they had didn't even make the team the following spring.
So it was a mess, and it was unique because I think, sometimes some fans were booing him, and I think other times they were just booing the situation.
I agree.
Why is this situation as bad as it is? This makes no sense. Why are we doing this every single week, the same thing over and over again? Just madness. But I think that will be just something that's figured out over the course of this year. We'll get a good idea. I don't really recall that last year, where that came into play, but obviously NIL is a lot more front and center now. So it will be part of the storyline some ways.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I do think that Charlie was booed because he didn't play well. He also didn't have a chance. It was a combination of both, which is why he also didn't play well. But even when he had an opportunity, it didn't work out. And it was just, you're talking about a team that was a Sugar Bowl team to the next year. They're 2-7. The offense, horrible. Well, eventually they changed the offensive coordinator's position, offensive line position. Charlie just got to be the one that was the battering ram, you know?
Yeah.
And even that was interesting at a college level, you heard the chant Zeno because of what he did in a Big 12 championship game. And yet he didn't even win the job the following spring.
No.
When Charlie left for Utah and, of course, lost the job
almost
early there.
as if
It's now at UAB.
Yeah. It's almost as if guys who do something for a living day in and day out know more about that than you do if you don't do that thing.
You mean about not replacing him?
Yeah.
I think, Aranda kind of even alluded to that. He never came out and said that. I'm not so sure that Charlie didn't take the beating because he didn't want to throw somebody else in there to take even more of a beating and screw them up.
But overall, yes. I mean, I think that's maybe a part of it. But also, I mean, sometimes you just got to trust the coaches. And I know it's hard in the first year, but you got to trust people that maybe know a little bit more than you do.
Well, they trusted him so much that as soon as the season ended that weekend, they fired offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Yeah, but I mean,
well,
yes.
If they would have done that during the season, would the heat on Charlie have changed?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, because I think people just needed some type of release.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, that was the definition of crazy. It was the same thing every week. And it was just pure madness to watch that offense roll out there on a weekly basis and just get hammered and walk off the field 3 plays later and a punt and then just go back out there again and just get hammered and walk off 3. I mean, that was crazy. And then all of a sudden the fourth quarter, like, boom, here's Montana to Rice. It's like, what the hell's going on here? But, yeah, and I do think that there are probably some college athletes that are going to be in for a rude awakening in certain circumstances because, yeah, they are more of a target having, the money flowing and the flashiness that might come with that for certain guys. Hopefully they're a lot more well aware of kind of that situation. But you can only argue, I think, if you're some people who want them to have their cake and eat it too, you can only have it certain ways. You can't have it all your way. And I've definitely seen some in the NIL game try to, basically make these guys rich for all intents and purposes and then turn around and be like, oh, you can't yell at them for anything. It's like, okay, which is it? Are they adults making money and have a job and it's a full-time job and it's a career, or are they kids playing like which is it? And I don't think that's quite been established just yet, but there are definitely some who are having their cake and eating it too and trying to, live on both sides of that fence.
I just asked in the chat room, and I probably should have put